So hi, this is Dr. Bhattacharya from the Empathy Clinic, and this is our show called A First Name Basis. And today, with Emily, we have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Eva Antczak, who is an educational psychologist who works for the Toronto School Board. She also has her own private clinic called the Core Center. She's an assistant professor and has two programs that she manages called the Ideal Me program that are about enhancing person's vitality, self-esteem, and emotional strength. But today, our focus is going to be on her new app called Talk to Alex.
Dr. Eva, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Emily Bhattacharya, and I'm a consultant in the health technology space. So I'm going to work with Dr. Bhattacharya today to really try to learn a little bit more about the Talk to Alex app. Talk to Alex is an interactive tool supporting and educating about mental health and well-being. We're going to watch a quick clip to understand a little bit more.
1 in 5 youth suffer from mental health problems. 70% of mental health problems begin in childhood, but only a few people actually receive help. After accidents, suicide is the second leading cause of death for kids aged 15 to 24.
Hi, my name is Alex. I am your robo-friend.
Talk to Alex is an innovative mobile application that supports the mental health of youth by providing them with research-based, research-informed tools and strategies proven to boost mood, change negative thinking patterns, and help in making good decisions.
So Eva, what interested you and brought you into the area of anxiety and self-esteem issues?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this interview, first of all, and for giving me the opportunity to explain a little bit more about reasons why we are doing what we are doing. It started a long time ago as a school psychologist working in a school board. I observed a huge increase in mental health, behavioral, and learning problems. And basically, when we started digging into why children behave the way they behave, why they present with certain difficulties, we understood that it is very often related to anxiety, low mood, very often also family problems. That way, the increase was incredible, and we started noticing that the mental health problems need to be addressed somehow in order to avoid its further impact, negative impact on these children in the future.
So do you see the anxiety that the children were experiencing that might have been affecting their scholastic performance was related to a number of factors, including their self-experience, but also the experience in their peers, but also in their family environment?
Absolutely. Absolutely, that's true. And very often, children who are experiencing some kind of worries, anxieties, or low mood, and let's say they are very young, they are not able yet to express themselves verbally, they usually present with disruptive behaviors that lead, of course, to many more problems, and on top of that, affect the learning. I think that the statistics say that in the last 4 years or so, we see the increase of about 70% with mental health problems among our societies.
Yeah, it's
so
incredible.
The need was there for a long time, but it became more and more visible.
And do you differentiate anxiety from panic?
Anxiety is, let's say, a state of mind, sometimes can stay with us for a very long time. However, panic is the acute, this is a moment when the person is in the survival mode. I don't know about you, but I see that, let's say, during the pandemic, this panic becomes a new norm. So it's kind of difficult to differentiate now what is an anxiety, what is a panic.
The way I look at it is that panic is not so much a thinking process. It's more of an immediate reaction to look after that fighting, frighting, or flighting, or freezing, which a lot of people are doing. As opposed to the anxiety, which might have a little bit more thought, but then the problem is people start to ruminate and overthink, and that just takes up so much headspace that they're not doing the other things that they might need to do, especially if you're talking to a child who's trying to focus on school and socializing, those other things, and then being swamped with anxiety.
If the person is overthinking, according to what Dr. Bhattacharya is saying, and is ruminating and thinking all the time in a negative way, that would be something, as you're saying, that prevents them from enjoying life, from functioning in so-called, normal way, whatever it is.
Definitely. And considering the circumstances, I mean, with the ongoing pandemic, but just children in general dealing with anxiety, how do children get onto the Talk to Alex app? Is it a application that is for both parents and children, for teachers and parents? Can you speak to that?
Application is designed, like interface is designed for children, but we definitely encourage both parents, teachers, caregivers to help the child access the app, to supervise, maybe not necessarily supervise, but lead the child, guide the child throughout the process, at least to make the child a little bit more familiar how to use it in the most useful way. So the app is basically loaded with tools, with resources that can help both children and parents to better understand what's happening in their heads, in their minds, and how they can help.
Are there any mechanisms in the application to warn caregivers or parents should a child be continually communicating with the application that they're experiencing maybe higher feelings of anxiety or stress or unhappiness?
There is a tool called Robometer in the app that allows children and parents to monitor the child's mood. And the beauty of this Robometer is that it is demonstrated in terms of like zones of regulations, also representing different colors for different kind of emotions. So, for instance, blue is for, let's say, bored, green is for happy, yellow would be for anxious, and red will be when we have this full-blown meltdown. Also allows children who are younger, who don't have yet the vocabulary developed, to be able to recognize these emotions and give them some meaning. It also teaches them vocabulary related to emotional states.
I just want to point out that I've actually downloaded the Talk to Alex app, and I've been using it quite regularly. And what's incredible about it is how deep it is. It keeps going and going. And the Robometer, I use a similar kind of color scheme in my practice. The Robometer won't just ask you how you feel. It will go deeper and deeper into it and then provide links to solutions. The other really helpful thing, too, I think, is the journaling part. Because when we were talking earlier about anxiety and ruminating, and I tell this to my patients, write it down, or take it out of your head and put it down somewhere so you don't have to keep reminding or rehearsing it in your head. And the fact that the child or the user of the Talk to Alex can have a place to put their thoughts and then reflect on them and also have solutions to some of those thoughts is a fantastic idea, because that way you can begin to calm their anxiety by them talking to that part of themselves that's more logical and thinking.
Oh, thank you very much for this wonderful feedback. To make it a little bit easier, let's say for children who cannot type or cannot write yet at this point, they also can record their voice, and also this recording go to the journal section. And you're right. At any point, they can reflect back on it. So, for instance, if I'm stressed out before a test, I can go back to the journal section and see what helped me before when I felt stressed before a test.
That's fantastic.
That's great.
Fantastic. I think the consistency is key, but with a lot of technological apps, I think the biggest hurdle is engagement. So how does Talk to Alex ensure engagement on the app so that kids stay involved and continue to use the program?
Well, we try to create the app in such a way that it looks engaging in the first place, so they want to click on it and download it. But the key is that children feel better, and because of that, they are willing to go back to app and go through it over and over again. Because, as I mentioned before, they can even visually track their progress on the Robometer before they use the app and after they use the app. They see the progress visually, and they feel this. That they feel a little bit calmer, and I think this is the best marketing for them to be able to understand this is something that helps me. I will be happy to go back and use it again.
Because at our clinic, the Empathy Clinic, we're constantly trying to improve empathy, or something like I've coined reciprocal empathy, which simply means that if two people are in a relationship, the chances of that relationship being better and improving is if they both empathize with each other in a reciprocal way. That can strengthen that relationship. So I was very curious, and you may not have some science on this yet, if the Talk to Alex app is going to improve a child's capacity for empathy.
I hope that it will happen. However, we need to be aware that, of course, this is just an app. This is just a cartoon character that looks at the child with big blue eyes, which allows the child to understand there is somebody who listens to you, somebody who doesn't judge you, somebody who is there for you, and that's usually the feedback I hear from from children, that it is so uplifting that somebody is there always for me, and I know I can go and talk to Alex when I need to. In terms of building empathy, I believe that in order to build and develop these connections with another human being, you have to have some insight into how you are feeling. And I hope that that Talk to Alex is building these capabilities in children to have a better insight how I feel, and also what caused me to feel in a certain way. That's why this is an ongoing kind of communication between the child and Alex, who doesn't really show any emotions. So it can be a little bit, to me, Alex is a little bit more as a counselor. I wouldn't say that he's somebody who will cure anybody from anything, but this is somebody who is there to listen. When we are talking about empathy, as you mentioned before, this is an interaction between two human beings who also have some feelings, and exchanging thoughts, ideas, naming emotions, coming together to a solution. So sincerely, I hope this app will build the child's capabilities to be able to express themselves and form positive relationships with others.
So I think that, and thank you for saying that, I think that a huge part of empathy is being aware of how you feel. And some people, they might know that they feel, or they might know what they're feeling, but they can't put it into words. Right. And that's called Alexithymia. And so many times when I'm working with couples, I do a lot of couple therapy, I'm actually educating usually the male in the couple of how he is feeling. And what I've devised is almost exactly the same. It's a 4-color rating scale, green being happy, and then blue being sad, and red being mad. And instead of saying afraid, I say frad for yellow. So it's glad, sad, mad, frad. It's easy. And when couples are talking quickly with each other, especially if they're a bit heated, it's a lot easier to ask what color they're feeling. And then what's interesting is that over a session or two, they're asking each other what color they're feeling. So they're beginning to wonder, and you're getting a bit red right now. And it actually is it's an easier conversation piece so they can amplify their empathy for each other.
And I heard from parents in terms of the feedback, or teachers, that they also develop this connection with the child when they ask, "Hey, Jimmy, how do you feel?" "Oh, I'm on a yellow." "Okay, so what can we do to bring you down to the green color?" So I find it really interesting, especially for younger children who, as you're saying, don't have this vocabulary. And vocabulary is a key in communicating between two human beings.
Well, if you think about it, when we were kids, we watched cartoons on television. And our point of reference was, did you see the Roadrunner, or did you see that cartoon? This is providing a point of reference that is on the app, but it's also reflecting back to self. So instead of the point of reference being a third-party issue, it's self and the app that then might amplify the point of reference between kids if they're talking later on.
Absolutely. The visual aspect is
the
very
visual
important.
aspect, yeah.
So are there any opportunities for children to share with each other how they're feeling on the application? Can the two Alexes talk to one another, or is that something they would have to physically verbalize at this point?
Two children want to communicate with each other using the app. I'm sure it is possible if they are in close proximity with each other. So let's say in the classroom, in the household, they can basically, and that's how I help children when I have the session with them. We're just showing to each other, I'm on the, let's say, yellow zone.
Okay.
Where are you? Oh, I'm on the green. Wonderful. So what can we do to get you to the green zone? So this absolutely allows the communication with another person, or with the teacher, or with the parents.
For anyone watching today, if they want to get their children on Talk to Alex, what is the right way to introduce the app in a way that gets the child excited?
Well, I think that the truth is that Alex is an emotional companion for youth. This is somebody that they can talk to. They are not being judged. These information are not going anywhere. Everything is confidential. However, I always warn parents and children that whatever they put into the journal section, it stays on the phone. So we need to be aware of that if the child is using a parent's phone or teacher's phone, the responses will be recorded there.
Okay.
Other than that, we are not collecting any information. And again, the app allows the child, if they don't want to speak to the app, they want to have some kind of privacy, they can type their responses. And again, they have somebody they can go and talk to and get some helpful advice. Because Alex also gives them advice. And what is even more interesting, Alex helps children to change the mindset by asking several different questions that are developed to challenge their negative thoughts.
So is Talk to Alex really prompting the child to give as much information as possible to understand their color score? Is that the theory behind it?
Well, the app is based on CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We interviewed about 600 people, children, parents, teachers at each and every stage of creating the app, mainly because we wanted to know how to talk to these children and what is the most friendly way for them to connect. So the questions that we are asking that are meant to challenge the negative thoughts are also based on the CBT.
And maybe Dr. Bhattacharya, you can give us a little bit of background on CBT for those that are not quite aware of what that is.
Sure. Well, I'm sure Eva and I can both contribute. CBT came out a long time ago, actually. Dr. Bach was the originator. And never met him, but I met some of the early followers of him back in the 1980s, early, when it came out. So the idea is that a thought can change or affect your mood and change your mood. And instead of looking at the early history of someone's life and seeing what's in their past, their subconscious, Dr. Beck realized that a lot of people actually have very negative thoughts called automatic thoughts. We're ruminating subconsciously sometimes. And so the idea was to make them conscious, record them, and then change them. And if you can change the thought, then you can change the mood. Eva, do you want to add to that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's basically going back to your question about if Alex is prompting people to talk. We are not going to dwell and talk about the problem too much. We want to find out what is the situation, what is the thought caused by this situation, and how we can change it. So going back to what Dr. Bhattacharya said, we are not trying to dwell on the problem, look at it from many different angles and directions. We just want to catch the thought and change it. Because if you do something over and over again, it becomes your habit. The same with anxiety. You have to have this negative, the pattern of negative thinking in order to feel miserable. And this is going back to ruminations that Dr. Bhattacharya mentioned. So if you have this pattern of negative thinking, you feel miserable. Now, if you are able to change it and start thinking in a more positive way, so what can you basically, what's a thought? Thought is something that you say to yourself silently. So what can you say to yourself to make you feel better? And basically, if you do it over and over again, it becomes your habit. Whatever becomes your habit becomes a part of your personality. You can have a better quality life.
Definitely. And that's really interesting because, I mean, in this time, it's already, everyone is really high strung with regards to the ongoing pandemic, but just for new parents out there, I mean, the app is a great tool to work with the children, but are there any strategies that parents can use to help coach themselves or their children to continue to think this way?
I think, again, we are planning to develop other versions of this app for different age groups, including crying babies and including parents.
Oh, wow.
However, the information that you can find in the app, I hope that Dr. Bhattacharya can agree with that, can be suitable for parents as well. It explains, for instance, why we have these negative thoughts. It explains that this is okay to have any possible emotion. However, it also explains the physiology behind it. It also shows what kind of tools and strategies you can use or your child can use in order to feel a little bit better. So, for instance, we spoke about changing negative thoughts. However, there is more to it. I believe Beck said also that you can, by changing the way you're behaving or the way you're acting, you can also change the way you are thinking. On the physiological level, there are a number of activities that people can do, and I'm saying people because both children and adults, for instance, breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation. And there are also resources such as guided meditation. My favorite one is happy pictures or happy quotes that can basically lift you immediately if you are having a bad day.
Definitely.
I think just to add to this, Emily, the old kind of version of psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, was looking at a fantasy-based issue. And so what people were struggling with was fantasies or negative fantasies. And for years, really up until about 1980, the whole issue of trauma causing psychological distress was almost ignored. It took really years for the DSM to include post-traumatic stress. And even then, it was part of the anxiety disorders. It wasn't until 2013 that they took it out of the anxiety disorders and gave it its own home. That means that you didn't have to be a vulnerable or a weak or mentally disabled person to get PTSD in the first place. Anyone could get it. And so the old structure of psychoanalysis wasn't really prepared to deal with actual trauma. It was much more prepared to deal with the fantasies of unacceptable thinking or thoughts that had never happened. And so this huge flip happened. Of course, when I got into psychiatry, this is when it all happened. And psychiatry suddenly became very chemicalized, and this is when cognitive behavior. It gives people actual strategies and solutions. Instead of insight, which it does as well, it gives people behavioral solutions and thought solutions, which is why it's so powerful.
I can ask another question here. I know, Dr. Eva, you mentioned that the app is completely confidential and no data is currently collected. And I think that that's really important, especially when working with children. But that opens a whole question about why are these children so anxious? What is going on in the society? Is it something consistent that children are experiencing that is resulting in the behaviors that they're experiencing? So is there some sort of future for Talk to Alex where there's some analytics we can do, whether it's from the text or from the color meters? Where do you see the future of maybe getting some evidence-based data from this application?
Definitely, we are planning to do some research on the app. I just received some information that Alex most likely will be presented as a demo version for any other resources to help with resiliency in the school boards. So there will be a need for and possibilities to collect the data and to do some research. At this moment, I think it is important for people to understand that we really want to help, that we really want to give them the tool, especially during the pandemic, at least something that they can use and try and see how it works and understand that there is nothing wrong with it. We can believe it or not, but stigma is still there. And I hope that Alex can also help people to understand that talking to someone about your problems doesn't really stigmatize you. So answering your questions, yes, plans are huge. We are going to develop other versions of the app. We're going to translate it into many different languages, and we are going to do research. However, app is very new, so I hope we can do it in a steady, slow way. Maybe not too slow, but whatever is reasonable to make it work.
And I think it's so admirable that you really genuinely just want to help these kids out. And I think that there's not enough tools that are honest and available for people that kind of break that stigma. With that being said, how fantastic would it be to partner with schools or large organizations that have children that maybe they could work this 10 minutes a day to dedicate time to expressing your feelings, whether it's through the application or another tool, personal journaling. Is there a future of maybe partnerships with Talk to Alex?
That's the information I just got yesterday. We are asked to allow school boards to use this app as a demo version in school boards. So it is very exciting.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I hope it will happen pretty soon. Especially that the need is there out there, and we, as I mentioned before, we are also working on other tools, games, ebooks, and so on, to support resiliency among children. So there is a bright future, and I believe that people, both parents, teachers, counselors, see the need to make some changes, to demystify these mental health problems and make it a little bit easier on people to reach out for help. This is, at least in my practice, I see that people reach out for help usually when it is way too late. A lot of problems could be prevented if the person reaches out for help a little bit earlier. So basically, we hope that Alex is more a preventative tool rather than psychotherapist or psychologist or psychiatrist.
No, I mean, in the health tech world, we say it's a proactive tool instead of a reactive tool. So I really think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
You mentioned resilience a number of times, and I always look at resilience as something that you require a certain amount of stress, the right amount, to build up. And I always use the osteoporosis analogy here. If you don't exercise and have a little bit of impact on your bones leach out and they get weaker and weaker. So you need some stress. But if you have too much stress, the bones can break. And so I think we need to have some stress to build up our sense of resiliency and strength. Not too much, but the right amount to build resilience. Do you have a comment about how we build resilience?
First of all, I agree with you. Stress is a very important component of our life. Otherwise, we will be totally unmotivated to anything. But I always say, that if we had a choice, most of us would lie under the tree and wait for the fruit to come down. So stress is definitely a very important component of our life. But you would possibly agree with me that you, not only that you agree with me, you already said that that there is too much stress. That's when we have a problem. So when we need stress, the first thing in the morning to even wake up and dress up to get ourselves ready to go to work or to school. We need stress when we are competing, when we are solving problems, when we are involved in any kind of sport activities and so on and so forth, taking tests, exams and so on. But when there is a first negative thought, what if I fail, let's say, instead of I will try my best on this test, that's when it is very difficult, when we don't stop this thought immediately, to get out of this spiral, this vortex of other negative thoughts that are coming. Because one negative thought leads you to, let's say, physiological responses that create this anxiety. This anxiety creates certain behaviors. For instance, you freeze or you try to run away from the problem, so avoid the problem. Or you want to attack the problem or the situation, and this is not helpful because now you are not concentrating, you're not focusing or solving, let's say, a problem or answering the question on the test. You are thinking about your own performance, and this is something that can cloud your mind. And then you say, "Oh, I knew it! I didn't know the answer to this question," and it becomes like a vicious cycle. For the person. So that's why I see the importance of catching this negative thought here and now immediately and changing it into something that can be a little bit more motivating. So again, instead of I'm useless, what can I do to improve my skills and abilities? Instead of saying I'm going to fail, what can I do to be better at this? So absolutely, stress is very important in life. Also, fear is important. It helps us to deal with dangerous situations. Anger is important when we need to, let's say, stay away from dangerous situations and so on and so forth. But also happiness is important.
Happiness is important. So just, I know we're running out of time here, but you're getting me to thinking about so many new things and questions. I did want to ask you, because I remember being in a restaurant in Boston many years ago, and I saw a young couple with a 2.5-year-old, no older, and they weren't able to control the child. So one of them just gave their cell phone to the child, and the child seemed to be mollified by that and was calmer. What would be the youngest age that you think would be applicable for a child to use the Talk to Alex app?
We recommend this app for children that are, let's say, 6 or 7 years old and older. I think because of the language development and experiences in life, we will need to be careful recommending the same app to different age groups or people with different set of problems. But again, parents, if they learn strategies, how to deal with stress, how to cope with emotions, any kind of emotions, they can actually teach their babies how to cope with distress. And surprisingly, you mentioned before the Ideal Me programs. It was all designed for children, but also for teachers and for parents. And I was really impressed that at some point, parents to be started, parents of young children or parents to be started to attend these programs because they said, you know what, we want to avoid any possible mistakes from the very beginning. So it was very uplifting and promising.
Definitely.
Fantastic.
I think that I had all my questions answered.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, thank you so much. It is always so nice to talk with you.
Eva, thank you so much for putting up with our technological issues and coming on again for yet another very spirited conversation about your new app, which I think is phenomenal. I think it's a huge step forward, blending technology and therapy and cognitive therapy with kids. But I also truly believe that this is applicable to anyone. I don't think you have to be a child to want to start thinking really meaningfully about how you feel and how the people around you feel.
Dr. Eva, you're such a pleasure to speak with every time. It's really lovely to connect with you.
And
Thank you so much.
we learn so much when we talk to you as well. Thank you. This is Dr. Bhattacharya from the Empathy Clinic with Emily, thanking Dr. Eva Antczak so much for being very helpful in introducing us to the Talk to Alex app and helping us understand this better. And hopefully this will become a buzzword that we'll all be talking about soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.